So let's start with the problem statement, right? Let's talk about reliability engineer as an example, who's been a primary role or persona that Augury has always catered to. They look at dashboards when you get a machine fault, and they're trying to figure out, what do I do with this fault? What's the root cause? How severe is the fault? How widespread is the fault? Is it happening in one plant or multiple plants? And this process of being able to diagnose, do a root cause analysis, and then be able to sort of open a work order, that's typically what we call as a workflow, takes weeks, if not more these days. That's what here industrial AI workforce is here to solve. The specific agent for that particular persona is called a reliability agent. Now let's talk about another persona. It's a process engineer and an operator. He or she is looking at 10 different dashboards at any point in time of various different process parameters, trying to make sense of, is my yield dropping? Is my throughput dropping? Is my product quality changing? And based on that, they immediately want to be like, okay, I need to go take an action. They go to a process engineer then is like, oh, let me do some analysis and see what parameters is causing the yield to go drop. And then they're like, okay, let me stop the line, go change. This could be hours, could days, or sometimes the lines are stopped because the yield is dropping and they don't want to run a plant with a high yield. Now we have an agent specific for them. We call it the operations agent. It automatically detects when the yield is going to go down. It identifies what parameters is causing the yield to go down. It recommends to them, it pops up on the HMI screen. They can go take this action. So what we are calling an industrial AI workforce is understand every user, understand their workflows, give an agent that caters to them, that understands their 8 a.m., that understands the 2 p.m., understands the 5 p.m. And in the process, we feel we can bring at least a 30% productivity in every persona. And if we can bring 30% productivity to every persona, a combined effect, a compounded effect to the business is a lot more than 30%, and I hope it's more like 100%. We were a complete end-to-end stack. We have always been, and that's been our success. So everything from a sensor that goes on top of a machine that manages the vibration as an example, to a gateway that gets the sensor data, goes all the way to the cloud. We're in our ML models there, and they have a dashboard. That's our existing product today. It works great because our ML model, or what we call as algorithm, has been a game changer in the industry, and who's who in the industry respects us for us. But it is a complete end-to-end control stack. Now, but as we are talking about the newer problems, like we said about helping a workforce, they're just not looking at the sensor data. Now they need to look at data coming from OSFI. They need to look at CMMS. They need to look at ERP data and so forth. So we need a new data layer, which is what we call as an industrial context graph layer. And previously it was tried to done in a very manual process by a lot of the platform providers. We feel with technology that can be done using what we call as a time series foundation models. That means understanding, as I said, the sensor data coming from Augury or any other sensor manufacturer is same as a tag that's in a historian, which is same as a record that is in CMMS, and being able to interconnect those and provide it as a context to a model that can then reason on top of it and then take care of the workflow that are very persona specific. So what you see at the very top, which is very user specific agent, is an output of a very complicated stack that we have built, but we have tried to abstract all of that so that to the user it just feels like it's doing the work for me or it's doing the work with me.
What our sensors are able to do is our sensors are able to pick up on deviations from normal machine operations in magnetic flux, temperature, and most importantly, vibration. Going all the way back in Augury's history, at one point we had thought about, well, wouldn't it be great to be able to put this sort of technology or logic inside the machine itself and almost operate like an Intel Inside type model. But the reality is that machine life cycles could be decades long, and customers were coming to us with problems in the immediate present. They needed us to help solve them now. Those sensors allow us to take analog devices and effectively turn them into digital devices where the data talks to the cloud almost instantaneously, same day, and can immediately start to add value. So the industrial context graph, the role-based agents that Anoop was talking about before, it's pretty unbelievable. You could take a piece of equipment that is 50, 80, 100 years old in some instances and have that engaging with an agent to provide the best possible insights to the end user. And that's where we fill this really privileged seat, so to speak, in the technology stack. So we actually work with process manufacturers on 6 continents and 40 countries around the world. And we cover all of the different subsectors of manufacturing and heavy industry. So thinking about things like CPG, beverage manufacturers, metals and mining, sawmills, oil and gas, energy, pretty much anything under the sun that has really critical rotating equipment, process manufacturing lines. We are able to operate just about anywhere customers need us to be operating, and covering just about any piece of critical equipment that they have on their site. And then between now and the end of the year, we actually expect to have a balance of plant coverage offering. So regardless of the criticality of the machine that customers come to us to serve and to cover, we'll have a solution to be able to cover that machine and ingest that data to. We're at AVEVA World this year in 2026 to announce the industrial AI workforce, and really two critical partners in announcing this this week. The first is AVEVA, specifically AVEVA Connect, and be able to ingest all of the operational data that lives inside of AVEVA Connect. And the second is also Google Cloud, so being able to interface with Google, pull in the insights as well to be able to surface that to customers via the agents that the industrial AI workforce would be placing in the hands of those different manufacturing personas. When we think about why this partnership is so important to us, really we want to be able to show up at any manufacturing site in the world and very quickly and effectively be able to identify what kind of operational data those customers have, where it lives, be able to ingest those data feeds, and to be able to run that data through that context graph that Anoop had referenced before. Being partnered with AVEVA Connect not only allows us to be an active player inside the AVEVA ecosystem, but it also allows us to surface that data and be integrated more quickly. I think one of the things that we've learned over the last many years of doing business is that the faster we could provide time to value to customers, the better off customers are, and the more that they become natively integrated on Augury workflows. And that's really that future that we're continuing to march toward.
Yeah, see, very simply put, we need the machine data that comes from us. We have our own sensors. You need the operational data that comes from AVEVA Connect. That's why it's a marriage of 1 + 1 = 3. But when you bring these two data, you need a reasoning layer. There are very few players in the market today who has a variety of foundation models, Google being one of them, Gemini being one of them, everything from a natural language for text-based to a time series based to a multimodality based. They have a comprehensive view, and that's why this partnership between us and AVEVA from a data point of view, plus us developing the context layer with the help of Google, leveraging Gemini models, I think helps us bring these industrial AI agents, what we call as the industrial AI workforce, in probably the manner that others haven't done before. Now with the evolutions of AI, and we use the word AI pretty broadly, but what I want to explain to people is AI is really a foundation model that has come up. It's called transformer-based foundation models that has started in the last 2-3 years. Think of the ChatGPT moment, the Gemini moment that has led into, which is very different than what people used to call before, which was more ML, which was machine learning models. And why is this different? This is trained on a very multimodality kind of data. So it's structured data, time series data, but also manuals, images, videos. So it can understand all of this and it can correlate this. So actually one of the technology aspects you asked me before that we have as part of a stack is what we call as industrial context graph. Industrial context graph is really what powers our industrial AI workforce. What this context graph is, for example, this particular tag coming from a historian OSI in AVEVA is same as a sensor data that comes from us or anybody else, is same as a CMMS record from a maintenance record or from an ERP that Salesforce would have as an example. Being able to correlate and say this points to the same machine, this machine is behind this machine that acts to the process was very manual before. Someone had to sit and literally tag and say this tag coming from here is same as this tag coming from here. All of that can be automated today because you can feed that to the AI foundation models. It can find the causality and the correlation, right? So it is not just what humans have to continue to do, what humans could not do before can be done today. Now, if this sort of evolves and takes to the shape that we are all talking about, to your question, where are humans involved? Human in loop will always be needed. They need to take the decision-making task versus sort of literally figuring out and mapping the tags. Leave that to the technology to do. But what should I do if the yield is going down? Should I take an action? Should I stop a production line? This will be recommended by AI, but I think for the foreseeable future, a human has to make that sort of decision because it's a lot more than a technology trying to go control a PLC. So I think that will be a fine line. I think it's more reskilling, as I would call it, or upskilling. People would have to go higher up, decision-making task, more intelligent task. It's going to be less about how do I reduce my yield, it's more about how do I increase my yield, because the last few years has always been about scrambling reactively to say, I need to stop my yield going down. Leave that to the technology. Technology will take it. It'll even tell you how to increase the yield, but you be the decision maker as to how to increase the yield, right? So that's the paradigm shift I think we're talking about with how AI and technology can help humans to help their business.